as Cree people, we believe we chose our parents. So we knew who was going to raise us. My parents didn't take me out harvesting medicine or show me plants for medicine. They were both residential school survivors. They had different things going on in their life. They didn't go to any ceremonies. Those options weren't available to a lot of the people that I knew through my lifetime. And they left without being given that opportunity to access traditional medicines, to access traditional healers, to access their own knowings of who they are as an Indigenous person. That's where the solutions lie for what we face today. Take one. No, just kidding. Margaret Kisikaw Piyesis, and I'm Okama for CAAN Communities, Alliances, and Networks. Me'eto Inokecha Taskuyo, kind-hearted warrior woman. My last name is Kisikaw Piyesis, and that's Cree, and that means daybird. And that was the name of my ancestors before the colonizers came here and put them on a reserve and start changing names. My dad was a bitternose, but prior to that, bitternoses were Kisikaw Piyesis on this land. And so when I sit in my government circles and they introduce me, little do they know when they say my name in Cree, they're bringing back that reconciliation to this land. I've been working in HIV for over 35 years in different capacities. My first introduction to HIV was I was doing a report on Indigenous health. I chose AIDS. So I went to the local AIDS organization here in Regina called AIDS Regina, got some information, talked to a couple of the people that worked there, and did my report. And I was very interested. This AIDS service organization talked about how HIV had the ability to go into our communities and to really, it would be something we'd have to deal with in the future. And so at some point I got an opportunity to do a practicum at their office. And then over the years, I just kept doing some part-time work with them, going out doing presentations and workshops on HIV. I helped organize All Nations Hope AIDS Network back in '95, I believe. All Nations Hope Network was one of the founders of CAAN. And so they established CAAN about 2 years later as a national organization. And so CAAN was really put together by Indigenous AIDS organizations across Canada that wanted a national office. So they got together and they put CAAN in place, and it became a national organization, and one that All Nations Hope has belonged to since the beginning. So I've been that person. I've been an advocate all of my life, standing up for the people who had no voice. So that's what drove me to here, is to really to look at that and how I could make change. So my early years is all about fighting and fighting and fighting, right? Fighting with my voice. Now it's a bit different, where I don't come to fight, I come to provide them with solutions. So the meeting I just had right now with the high-level officials in Canada, they're asking me to help them with solutions. And I feel that's the place where I've came from, working on a street here, Fifth Avenue in Regina as a worker, to the place where I am today. That's where I've came from. So I know what goes on in the streets because I worked here. And so at those levels, I can make change in policies and programming and recommendations of where funding should go to address what we're seeing. Being involved in the HIV movement there was a lot of stigma, ignorance, and discrimination and racism that was taking place for people who were presenting with HIV. And I felt it was very unfair, and I wanted to work for change. As a humanitarian, it's important for me to really look at what is happening to humans and make a difference in how that's happening, whether it's changing policies or creating programs within institutions, systems, and agencies. That's where I felt I could have the most impact in addressing that, and always being that voice of, hey, that's not fair, that's racist. I can't recall in the HIV movement if we've ever said anything like like eradicating HIV. I can't recall that. That's a very colonial word. So, the colonial people came here, they talk about, in the world, they talk about conquering the world or eradicating or killing, all those kind of words. I usually see the pharmaceutical companies using those words because they want to sell their product, right? So they want to eradicate HIV. When I hear different campaigns, I kind of say, well, can we change the word because our different programs or teachings, whatever it is, change the words so that they're more life-giving words versus the killing words. And the reason I say that is because we still have people that live with HIV. And can you imagine, and this is, again, it's discriminatory. I can think of times where I've sat in meetings where I'm the only Indigenous person and they're talking about Indigenous people and they're using terminology that is very, it's hurting to me. And I usually speak up, of course, but I can imagine there's some people who don't say nothing. They just let it be. So if someone was sitting here and they're living with HIV and we start talking about eradicating HIV, then they're thinking to themselves, are they trying to get rid of me? That ultimately they would think that in that manner because we're talking about people can live with HIV. So thinking about the language that we use and how we use it, we have to be really mindful of who's sitting around us. Because we don't talk about the viruses because they're living. We don't talk about the bacterias in that manner of getting rid of them or eradicating them. There's still a lot of stigma associated with HIV, and we need to change that story and change the way that we're talking. I've had relatives that have passed on of AIDS. I've had many friends that have passed on of AIDS. I've had many that have lived with HIV and died of other diseases, whether it's tragic or suicide or overdoses. I feel that they haven't been given opportunity to heal or even to have access to safe supplies if they're using, or access to therapy, or even today, access to our Indigenous ways of knowing and doing to the healers. Some of my colleagues and my friends talk about HIV, saying that HIV wasn't the problem in their life. When they began to acknowledge themselves and their healing and their wellness and be on that journey, they said HIV was not the problem in their life. It was the fact they went to residential school, the fact that they were maybe adopted, that maybe they were the 60s scoop, or those were things that they talked about. Those were the root of what was happening in their lives and caused them to come into contact with HIV. So if we're Cree, if 4% of us have HIV, 96% of us don't, what does the 96% have that is really enhancing their lives so that they don't come into contact with HIV? So I think about things like that. I've been told that by an elder. Willie Ermine used that story in terms of opening our eyes to the fact that we need to look at what keeps us well versus what keeps us sick. A lot of my stuff come from the elders and our ceremonial people, our Kiteaks, our wise ones. I have to sit in ceremony to be well myself, grounded in my Indigenous ways of knowing and doing, but also grounded with the land. So going back to the land, spending time harvesting medicine, spending time out taking walks, being in the mountains, being in the lakes, being in the bush, in the forest. That's what's healing to me, and that's what helps ground me to be able to do the work that I do. Tonight I'm going to a full moon ceremony, and so that helps me to re-energize myself and to remember who I am, because once upon a time on this land, my grandmothers were part of moon ceremonies. And so I'm starting to take my granddaughter to those, and I'll continue to take my children, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, those on, and those to come to ceremonies. I'll ground them in ceremony so they know this is the way forward. That we're not relying on the government to save us, we're relying on our ceremonies and our medicines and our teachings that we carry from our ancestors to be able to move forward in our lives. We're Indigenous to this land, we're the first peoples of this land, and Canada came later. And so I always speak in terms of the land called Canada. I'm indigenous to this land. My ancestors were here since the beginning of time. Everyone that came after the fact are from this land they call Canada now. So when you start talking the truth, sometimes it's hard for people to accept and understand because they haven't dealt with their own ancestors. It's kind of interesting. We've only been colonized on this land for maybe 500 years, maybe 125 with Canada, a little over 125 with Canada. But some of the people that came to this land, they've been colonized for way longer than us. So they don't even remember what their language is. They don't remember what their nations are. They don't remember what their teachings are, what their medicines are. But here on this land, we still know. We still know that. And that's the strength and the beauty and the resilience that we have as Indigenous people, because we still know who we are. We still can speak the language. We still can gather the medicines. We still can do the ceremonies. We have all of that understanding, and we're very spiritual beings. And so when they came here to conquer and control us, they couldn't control our spirits because we belong to Kisimanito and we belong to our ancestors. So that's the beauty of knowing who you are, and that truth and reconciliation that has to go across this land is so important. I have known and loved and been related to people who are two-spirited. And I've known this for a long time. There's something special that has resonated with me throughout my lifetime. There's terminology, there's language in Cree that speaks about two-spirit people. So we've had these teachings for many years on this land, and to remember them. The fact that HIV went after our two-spirit people first says something to me in general in terms of the virus really attacking them and trying to take their lives. So they couldn't do what they're doing on this land today. Our two-spirit people are ceremonialists, they're medicine people, they're gifted, they're very talented, musical, artistic. We see them presenting as our lawyers, our doctors. There's a lot of highly qualified people that are there, and they're able to walk in both worlds, traditional and Western. I like to talk about the different degrees that we seek as human beings. And as Indigenous people, we look at our degrees coming from the universe. When I woke up to an understanding of who I was as a Neheawisgoyo, a Cree woman, that I had different roles and responsibilities that I needed to learn or relearn or remember. I had a dream where a bear was attacking me, or so I thought it was attacking me, and it was biting me all over my head, my arms, my legs, and I started asking it, are you going to eat me? What are you doing? And it was just friendly with me. And so when I woke up from that dream, I was thinking to myself, what did that mean? I was told that the bear was waking me up because medicine had been left for me by my ancestors to know. And the fact that my grandparents, who I didn't have an opportunity to know, were medicine people, that also was ingrained in me and passed down from generation to generation. As they move forward, those that dream, there's real opportunity in those dreams for you to acknowledge things that are going to happen to you. As Cree people, we're told about our creation stories, and that even before we came to this place, to Mother Earth, that we made a commitment with Kisimanito, the Creator, and talked about what we would experience here. We talked about what we would do here, and there was a plan. So we're all here experiencing our lives as the way we said we would do them. And every time something happens, it's a reflection of the fact that we said we were going to do this. This is our commitment. So it's a beautiful way of understanding life. I think it's different than just living and worrying about what happened yesterday and what could happen today or what's going to happen in the future, always worrying. It's about living in the present and understanding that you chose this life, you chose this way, and things are going to happen as they happen. So I think that that's the opportunity we have as human beings to encourage each other, to live the best life you can with what you have and to be thankful every day